We are following breaking news involving the case of an alleged doomsday mom who took her 4 children illegally out of the country, all of them vanishing without a trace for months until now.
We received a call from the FBI agent that we were working with that Elleshia Seymour had been apprehended by the Dubrovnik police here in Croatia.
We just spoke with the aunt of 3 of the 4 children who Elleshia Seymour allegedly took out of the country. She says that she's in Croatia right now with Elleshia's ex-husband, her brother, and they say the children are safe. They shared with us these pictures showing Seymour's ex-husband with the children in Croatia. Obviously a huge sigh of relief if you have been following this story, especially after Elleshia Seymour allegedly left behind notes in November saying that she believed the apocalypse was near.
And it was like the world had stopped. We were thrown back into an ice age.
But this saga is not over just yet. We are also learning more about why Seymour may have targeted Croatia as her destination, who she was allegedly talking to online before she took off. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Hey guys, real quick, I want to talk about a big sponsor of On the Case, one of the top shows on YouTube, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest personal injury law firm. They're a firm with more than 1,000 attorneys who have recovered $25 billion from more than 500,000 clients. In the past few months alone, a client in Florida received $12 million when insurance offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, another client was awarded $26 million. That is 40 times the insurer's offer. Morgan & Morgan makes it easy to fight for what you deserve. You can even start a claim from your phone. So if you're injured, you can start a claim at forthepeople.com/OTC. You can also click the link below or scan the QR code on your screen. Well, a major sigh of relief for sure that the 4 children who Elleshia Seymour allegedly took out of the country back in November, they are alive and they are safe. These are pictures that we were sent of Kendall Seymour, who is Elleshia's ex-husband, as well as his sister, Jill Seymour. They are in the South Croatian town of Dubrovnik. They say this is where the children are currently being held in the custody of Croatian authorities at a child care facility as they figure out the logistics of getting them back to the United States. And we will talk about the hurdles they are facing right now. Kendall is the dad to 3 of the kids who Elleshia allegedly took out of the country. The 4th child is Elleshia's, but it's with another father. Now, you might remember this story from December when police say this mom boarded an international flight with her 4 children. They were last seen on surveillance video getting on the plane in Salt Lake City, and since then, they have been gone. Seymour is 35 years old. She's the mom to these 4 kids, 3 sons and a daughter, with 2 different ex-husbands. The eldest child is 11, and the youngest is just 3. This is according to a GoFundMe page that was started by one of the dads who we've been communicating with. Police say Elleshia Seymour, she wanted to keep the kids to herself, and she went to alleged extreme lengths to do it. Now, West Jordan police in Utah filed a warrant in Salt Lake County calling for Seymour to be found, brought back to the United States, and to be locked up. And according to the family of her ex-husband, who again are now in Croatia, Elleshia Seymour is now in custody, and we're working to confirm that with Croatian authorities. Now, the Utah warrant indicates that Elleshia Seymour faces 4 felony charges of custodial interference. It's important to note that she does have joint custody of these kids, and that might be the reason why she's not facing kidnapping charge or an abduction charge, but it's custodial interference. And she's facing 4 counts, 1 for each child she is accused of taking to Europe without their dad's permission. And according to investigators, Seymour, again, with this joint custody agreement with both of her exes, and each count filed against her is a 3rd-degree felony, and each one carries up to 5 years in Utah's prison system if Seymour is convicted. This is according to the state's sentencing guidelines. It's also unclear when and if she will be brought back to Utah. Now, Seymour was last seen on November 29th. That is roughly 2 months ago. And she and the children were last seen boarding a one-way flight from Salt Lake City to Amsterdam. And it was a flight that was going to end in Croatia. Now, we do know, according to this warrant that police filed, that there was a voicemail that Seymour allegedly left for one of her ex-husbands on December 2nd. And she claimed that she was in France with the children, and she was stating that she was looking for a permanent residence, and she needed to get the children out because the end times were coming. That is chilling and certainly concerning when you think about the safety of the kids as they were in Europe and so many members of law enforcement were trying to track them down. Police say on December 10th, the time for her to return the children to their fathers as part of their joint custody agreement had elapsed. Detectives say that they spoke to both fathers and the dads were not aware, and they had never consented to let Seymour remove the children from the state or the country. And based on all available information, Seymour appears to have no intention to return the children to the United States. It appeared around the time that Seymour allegedly took the children, there were concerns about her mental state. This is a TikTok that she posted in October. Her username is a daughter of light. And you get a sense of the doomsday ideology that it appears she subscribed to. In this post, she talks about a dream that she had that an electromagnetic pulse would go off and destroy communications in the world, creating chaos. Listen to this.
Hey y'all, I had a dream last night and this dream repeated a few times. I woke up a few times and it kept replaying every time I fell back asleep. And I feel that this is urgent. This dream was about an EMP going off. I heard the sound, like the blast that it makes. And as soon as that happened, the car stopped driving, computer stopped working. All electronics were down, Wi-Fi was down, water was down. The airplanes fell from the sky. Helicopters fell from the sky.
Police have requested, when she's brought back to the United States, that she be held without bond. Police say in the warrant, quote, many witnesses have expressed concerns about the defendant's mental stability, indicating that she has previously suffered from emotional breakdowns and hallucinations. The defendant appears to have adopted extreme beliefs regarding the end of times, such that she believed it necessary to uproot her children from their lives and flee the country. There is a very real risk that the defendant's extreme erratic behavior will escalate and put her children at risk if she is released on bail. Police say after she left for Europe, they did a welfare check at her home in West Jordan, Utah, outside Salt Lake. And they say when they got there that the door was unlocked and the apartment was unoccupied. They tried to get in touch with Seymour. They say they couldn't. They also say that no one they had spoken with who knew her was able to get in contact with her since she left on November 29th, the day that she boarded that flight. The warrant goes on to say, quote, a missing persons investigation was launched. Over the following days, Seymour's vehicle was located in a parking lot at the Salt Lake City International Airport, and a notebook containing plans to shred documents, discard phones, and take passports was found inside Seymour's apartment. Then you have that video footage from the airport showing Seymour and her 4 children entering the airport on November 29th, and they get on that one-way flight that was bound for Amsterdam to eventually get them to Croatia. And the FBI had been looking for them ever since. But the break in this case, according to Seymour's ex-husband and his sister, local authorities in Dubrovnik, Croatia, arrested Seymour in just the last couple of days. They say she is still in custody. I'll have my conversation with Jill Seymour in just a moment. She claims that Elleshia went to Croatia because she met a woman who is an American on TikTok, and that woman lives in that Croatian town, and they share the same doomsday ideology, the end times ideology, believing allegedly that the apocalypse is going to come. She says the two met on TikTok. Now, the aunt of the children also told us that that woman, the one who Elleshia allegedly was going to meet, she is also in custody right now. Elleshia's 4 children are in the custody of local authorities in Croatia, and they're living at a state-run childcare facility right now. Jill sent us these pictures of them spending time with the kids during the 2 hours of visitation they say they get each day. To get the kids back, Kendall and Jill Seymour will need to hire Croatian lawyers, they say, who specialize in child abduction, create and submit Hague Convention applications, and hire court-approved translators as well, as they say they are going to be in Croatia for an extended amount of time because it is unclear how long it will take for the legal process to play out. They also say that the woman who Elleshia was allegedly traveling with, she has a son who is with them, and he is in the custody of Croatian authorities at this childcare facility, and it's unclear what, if anything, could be done to get him back to the United States. So I reached out to the West Jordan Police Department, since they were the ones who filed the charges against Elleshia Seymour, and they told us that they wouldn't have a comment today, and they referred us to the FBI. And the FBI told us they do not have a comment, and they referred us to Croatian authorities, and we are working on getting in touch with them. Here's my conversation with Jill Seymour from Dubrovnik, Croatia. Jill, thank you for joining us. Just what can you tell us right now about the situation you're dealing with?
We are living this living nightmare day by day, trying to get our kids out of a, for lack of a better word, orphanage in Croatia, get custody released to us, working with local authorities that move at molasses speed here in Croatia.
How
Trying
did
to
you
figure out
find? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Just how did you find out that they were there?
Yeah. So we found out Friday afternoon last week, we received a call from the FBI agent that we were working with, that Elleshia Seymour had been apprehended by the Dubrovnik police here in Croatia, and that the children were with her at the time of her arrest.
And is that where she is now?
Correct.
What did they tell you about how the children wound up in this state-run orphanage?
We found out most of that information from a fifth child that they're with, who they've been living with for the past about month and a half. So you have to take this information that we've learned of how they got there through the eyes of a 13-year-old. Croatia as a whole is pretty tight-lipped around the ongoing investigations. They don't have, there's not like a mugshot that gets released, right? Like you do in America. So they won't give us any information as far as how that worked. So, but the children were there at the time, including the 13-year-old. So he saw everything transpire.
And with Elleshia, and because I know, as you're saying, I mean, the FBI were able to, they're involved in this. Why are there so many, to your understanding, kind of the legal hurdles to be able to get these children back to the United States?
I wish we had a clear answer on that. Everything that we are told is, since the kids are now in custody technically, through this children's center in Croatia, through the social service group here. And so they have to verify every single document that we turn in. And it has to be turned into them in English and in Croatian. So we've had to get everything translated, and they have to verify that all of it is real before they can release the custody of the kids back to my brother Kendall. And the way that they do so is a lot different than how we operate in America. There's different things that they're asking for that don't exist in America. I mean, even to get something notarized here, there's a special, it's baker's twine basically, that's red, white, and blue, and they put holes in the paper and they tie it with baker's twine, and there's a special stamped sticker that goes on the back of the paper that holds the twine together. There's no digital anything. That can only be given by hand to any of the government. Everything in America is e-filed, right?
Yeah.
Anything that we're sending over if to a judge to be signed is sent electronically, and that just doesn't exist here.
Have you been able, you and your brother, to talk to the children? I know you're the aunt to 3 of them, but be able to speak to these kids?
Yes, we do get a whole whopping 2 hours a day with the kids to be able to visit them in the children's center.
How are they doing?
They're safe. They are eating. Pretty much the only thing they like about the center is the food. It is home cooked meals. They really enjoy that. But they hate it, and they very often say that they feel like they're in jail. They want to go home. They want to get back to the States. They want to be around people that understand them. There's a couple of the teenage kids. There's 30 kids in this children's center. There's a couple teenage kids that speak some English. There's 2, 3 workers that speak some amount of English, so they're having a really hard time communicating their needs.
What have they told you about the last, since November when they left Utah?
Yeah, so they they knew that a lot of the things that their mom was telling them didn't add up, didn't make sense. These aren't the first lies or grandiose ideas that their mom has tried to sell to them. So we're really thankful to how intelligent they are, that they're not believing the conspiracies that she has believed in. But they did believe that we knew where they were and that she had permission from their dad to be taking them on this trip. They had no idea that we didn't know where they were or that we have been doing everything to find them. They thought that we were aware of the situation, but other than that, um, they really spent a lot of time on a lot of ferries, is what they talk about. Going in between islands, a lot of ferries, a lot of driving.
What do you know about how they were able, like the authorities, the FBI, and even this local, police department in Croatia, to be able to identify that something was wrong and bring her into custody?
Yeah, so the 13-year-old child is actually who found out that the kids were missing and that the FBI was looking for them in the States. He was having a conversation with my 8-year-old nephew, Levi, and Levi asked him to Google his name because this 13-year-old had a cell phone. And so he Googled Levi's name, and all of the news articles popped up. And he sent those in a group text. He allegedly sent those in a group text, is what he's telling us, to his mom and to Elleshia, with concern that the kids were looking for them. And as far as the 13-year-old is concerned, his mom was unaware that the children were not here legally, and that they were being looked for by the FBI. So she and Elleshia went to the police station. Um, this other woman pretty much dropped Elleshia off at the police station and forced her to turn herself in. And an argument broke out, and both were arrested at that time.
Who is this other person?
She is from Georgia. She has lived here from Georgia, the state, in the United States, and she's lived here for about a year and a half with her 13-year-old child, on an island here in Croatia. She has all the same beliefs as far as end of worlds in the prophecies that Elleshia was receiving. If you look at her TikToks and everything, it's all very similar.
How do you know how she was able to get in touch with Elleshia?
The 13-year-old says that his mom and Elleshia met through TikTok.
And then is that, I guess they end up having a conversation and then their beliefs, and then they plan to, is that why
Yes.
Croatia, I know in the beginning the flight was going to the Netherlands, but then eventually to Croatia, is the belief that that's where they were headed?
Yes, so her original flight was to split Croatia. And now speaking to the kids, we learned that they missed that original flight, because Hazel was tired of walking with all of their luggage in the airport. Understandably so, she's 7. So they missed that flight, originally to Split, and that's why they flew to Amsterdam instead. And then they hopped on a plane from there and landed in Split.
Have you been able, or your brother, to communicate with Elleshia since she's been arrested?
No, we will not have any communication with her.
Has the FBI told you anything about what the process will be to get her back to the United States? Because I know she's going to face charges when she gets back to Utah, if and when that happens.
Correct. The West Jordan Police Department, where Elleshia lives and I live as well, has warrants out for her arrest, but I'm not sure how that will play out. I'm not sure if there is anything here in Croatia. We don't know if there's any laws she's broken here, that they could possibly charge her for, or if she will be extradited back to the States. That will hopefully we'll learn that in the future.
And I know with the system is very slow. It sounds like in Croatia. I mean, is there any idea how long you're going to be there and what it's going to take to be able to get these children back home?
No, we don't have a definitive answer on any type of a timeline. It is still in the hands of the local police department to finish their investigation. and then it will be in the hands of the social service organization here in Dubrovnik to release the kids.
And is there anything I missed or anything you'd want people to know now that, they're learning that Alicia's been arrested and these kids are safe?
Yeah, the kids are absolutely safe, as far as they're not in harm's way, but the conditions of where they currently are is not up to any type of American standard. Just today, I discovered a new part of the house. Workers weren't. There's certain spots we're allowed to go, and we're not allowed to go according to the workers. Jacob, the 3-year-old, had asked for some water. There was no workers in sight to for me to ask where he can get water from, which is a huge red flag. The worker to children ratio doesn't exist like it does in the States, as far as childcare goes. So I went and found him some water myself and found a lot of black mold on walls. The restroom is not up to any sort of standard. Um, just the level of care that they're receiving, outside time, any structure. We keep joking that the kids are like free range chickens. There's they get called when it's mealtime. They get told when to shower, and other than that, the kids do whatever they feel like doing. All the other kids get to leave the center and go to school. They get a monthly allowance. They get to go shopping. A lot of them have family in the area that will take them out to do things. Our kids are not allowed to leave the center. They're not allowed to go shopping. They're not allowed to go to school. So they really do feel like they're in prison.
Oh, I hope that you and your brother and these children, you get answers soon because it's a very difficult situation. Jill Seymour, thank you for joining us on Law and Crime. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I also spoke with Caitlin Hart, who's a reporter with EastIdahoNews.com. That's been an outlet that has been covering this story from the very beginning. Joining us now is a reporter with EastIdahoNews.com, Caitlin Hart, an outlet that has covered this story from the very beginning. I know all of us are kind of taking in the information that's come down over the past couple of hours. What stood out to you in your conversations with the family of these children, or at least 3 of the 4 of them, as they're now in Croatia and Elleshia Seymour reportedly is in custody?
Right. So after speaking with Jill, the aunt to the 3 Seymour children, we learned a lot. We learned that they have allegedly been in Croatia for about a month and a half, in a city called Dubrovnik, which is fascinating that they've been there that long. And from what we learned from the aunt, it turns out that it sounds like there was a 13-year-old boy that the family was staying with that ended up kind of being the reason for Alicia's alleged arrest and the FBI finding the children, which I think is fascinating. According to Jill, the mother, Elleshia, had connected with a woman living in Croatia over TikTok, and they connected and they ended up living with this woman and her 13-year-old son in Croatia for about a month and a half. And eventually the 13-year-old Googled one of the children's names and found out that they were looking for them in the United States, and showed his mom. And the Croatian woman made Elleshia pack her things and drove her to the police station. And turns out they were both arrested, according to the aunt, Jill, because they got into like a physical altercation outside the police department. And from there, the children were taken into custody by a children's center that's similar to an orphanage in the United States, but it's more similar to like a foster care situation. And that's where they're being held. And the family has gotten to see them for about 2 hours a day since about January 18th, I believe.
Yeah. And to think of, it's interesting that according to, and we only have like the FBI said no comment, West Jordan police said no comment. And then, we're working on getting in touch with authorities in Dubrovnik, Croatia, which just from talking to Jill and just the legal process that's playing out, it seems like that's not something as quick as it would be getting a statement from the FBI. But this woman who she allegedly met, and we're kind of vetting information on who that actually is, but it appears that they, at least according to Jill, like they bonded over like this doomsday ideology on TikTok. And it's just fascinating to think that kind of sharing these thoughts on social media would lead to her allegedly taking these children without the consent of the dads out of the country and really, I mean, 5,600 miles away from home in Utah.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like they did bond over their similar ideologies on the apocalypse, on doomsday, things like you said. But it does sound like the woman in Croatia was unaware that the children had forged passports, allegedly, that they were taken when Elleshia does not have full custody of the children. And it does seem like as soon as she found out that she was aware, she did report it to the authorities. And it's quite the interesting story, how they lived with this family for a month and a half, and it took that long for them to find out that people have been looking for them all over the world.
Right. And it'll be interesting if that the American woman who's living in Croatia, I know she's being, according to Jill, detained. But whether she, the investigation that'll go into how much she actually knew, because we knew that she was online a good amount. And what a moment it must have been for those kids to kind of type their name into Google and see all the coverage that's been going on here for the last several months, because according to Jill, the kids thought for a long time that they were kind of on this vacation, it seems, or at least the family knew where they were. And that apparently wasn't the case. What do you make of the legal hurdles? Because it seems like, as much as, okay, here are these kids that were missing in the US, Elleshia Seymour is set to face charges eventually when she returns to Utah. The FBI knows that these kids were there. They're the ones who communicated with Jill. And yet it seems so difficult at this point for them to actually get the kids back to the United States. And there seems to be like there's going to be a cost that comes with it too.
So the interesting part, I think, that's making it so difficult in speaking with Jill is the translation aspects, that language barrier. It sounds like that is a huge reason why the court process is taking so long, because the Children's Center actually has custody of the children right now in Croatia. And for them to be able to turn the custody over to the parents, it sounds like the police department in Croatia has to complete their investigation, and they have to have the courts in Utah send over documentation proving that they are their actual family, that they have, the custody of the children. But in order for that to happen, it has to be sent to Croatia, translated, and then turned over to the police department, because according to Jill, they don't do any kind of like e-filing. You can't just like email things back and forth. It has to be turned in on paper in Croatian. And so that is taking a really long time, as well as, the police continuing their investigation and making sure that all the documents are legitimate, and kind of just making sure everything goes through the correct processes to make sure these kids are who they're supposed to be with.
Right. And it's, I'm sure it sounded like, in speaking with Jill, just incredibly frustrating and draining to have to deal with all of this. I know that your outlet has covered this story from the very beginning, and we were talking about some of the similarities with this case. And then you think of the Lori Vallow case that played out. Certainly that one much darker. And in this case, we have somewhat of a happy ending at this point, that these kids are safe, and eventually we assume they'll be able to get back to the United States. But when it comes to this ideology that I think a lot of people are going to just be fascinated with, and fascinated's a tough term because it's obviously very concerning, but what are some of the parallels maybe you see between that case and this case?
Sure, yeah. So we covered Lori Vallow Daybell pretty extensively, and with this case with Elleshia, it seems like the mothers have these extreme ideologies. They both come from LDS backgrounds, and they have just kind of taken these beliefs and spiraled them to the absolute extreme. One interesting thing that I think is both of these mothers seem to have felt the need to take their children elsewhere, which is interesting. Lori Vallow obviously took her children from Arizona to Rexburg, Idaho. And then Elleshia took her family from Utah to Europe, and they went to Amsterdam and Italy and all of these places. And it just seems like there is a culture in social media with this, because, Lori Vallow Daybell was a part of a lot of podcasts, and she was a part of a lot of things trying to kind of like disseminate this information and her beliefs. And then Elleshia was all over TikTok and all over social media, also disseminating her beliefs, which I think worried a lot of people. And there's a lot of similarities. I think obviously we're really thankful that this one doesn't seem like it's going to end up nearly as dark as the Lori Vallow Daybell one. And we're really glad these kids are safe. And and healthy. And it's just interesting the way that some of these tend to be pretty similar within the way that they start.
Yeah. And I think not to single out TikTok, but I think in this case, it seems like it was TikTok, but the social media aspect of it too, we're having these concerning ideologies, and we see it in a lot of different tragic stories. You meet people with similar ideas. But again, we don't know if this person in Croatia, who she was allegedly living with, how much they knew. And we'll see how all of that plays out. As far as the family dynamic, because we know that 3 of the children were Kendall Seymour, who's the ex-husband, and Jill Seymour's brother. 3 of them are his kids. And then there's this 4th child as well, who is also Elleshia's child. But for as vocal, and I think, you see the Seymour speaking with the media like we did with Jill today, you don't hear much from the father of that other child. What is the family dynamic that we know about at this point with just all of these kids, and kind of how the families are feeling as this is going on?
Yeah, honestly, we don't know a lot about the 4th child's father. We haven't heard anything from him in the media. We were reached out pretty directly by Jill today at East Idaho News, and I imagine she reached out to you guys directly as well. And they've been very outspoken. We haven't heard anything from the 4th child, but it seems like the family right now is just happy that they were found, is happy that they're safe. One of the interesting things is Jill told me that the 7-year-old girl, Hazel, was telling the adults that her mother had told them that they needed to leave because Salt Lake City was about to be destroyed, that there was an apocalypse, all these things. And they asked Hazel what she thought, what she believed, and she said she didn't think any of it was true, which kind of speaks to the intelligence of these children. I mean, it's kind of amazing that these children were kind of able to think for themselves when, like, a parental figure is telling them these things that come from these really extreme, concerning ideologies. And I think the family right now is probably just buckling down and trying to get through the rest of this. I mean, I think she said they've expected to only be there about 48 hours, and they've been there about 9 days today.
Yeah. And it's, again, I mean, the good news part of it is those kids are safe, and the legal part of it, we'll see how it plays out, see if anything can be kind of pushed ahead forward. But they're in another country and in the custody of another country. So we'll see how it plays out. Caitlin Hart with EastIdahoNews.com. I know a busy day in your newsroom. Thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law&Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and now you can find episodes of On the Case on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.